In 1630, an Ethiopian scholar named Zara Yacob fled a wave of religious persecution and took refuge in a remote mountain cave. For 2 years, he lived in isolation, stripped of his community and his church. It was here that he began a process of systematic questioning, developing a philosophy centered on libuna, the intelligent heart, or human reason. The resulting text, the Hatata Inquiries, articulated a system of rationalist deism and social ethics. Jacob argued that any religious law contradicting the natural order could not be divine. He condemned slavery, advocated for the equality of women, and rejected monastic celibacy, concepts that would not appear in European philosophy for decades. Despite the reach of these ideas, the Hatata disappeared from global history textbooks for over a century. A work that mirrored the complexity of the Enlightenment was entirely absent from the record of human thought. This absence became official in the early 20th century. Following decades of debate, the academic establishment formally declared Zara Yacob a fictional creation, categorizing his life's work as a 19th-century invention. Suspicions centered on Giusto da Urbino, an Italian missionary who moved to Ethiopia in the mid-1800s. He was the man who transmitted the manuscripts to Europe, and for many, he was the only plausible author. Giusto was an unconventional priest. He struggled with his own faith, expressed interest in mesmerism, and reportedly told British officials that Protestantism was truer than Catholicism. To scholars, these heterodox views seem to match the radical rationalism of the Hatata a bit too closely. This timeline shows the mathematical alignment that many historians found conclusive. Zara Yacob recorded his birthdate as the 25th of Nahase. Giusto da Urbino was born on August 30th, a date that, in the 19th century, perfectly aligned with that exact day on the Ethiopian calendar. To the Italian Orientalist Carlo Carti-Rossini, this calendar overlap was the evidence he needed to close the investigation. In 1920, he published his findings, branding the Hatata a hoax and Giusto da Urbino its sole architect. The case remained closed for 80 years. It took the development of modern forensic data to look past the coincidences and re-examine the physical evidence. In the modern era, researchers applied computational stylometry to the text, a process that maps the unique mathematical patterns in an author's writing style. The stylometric data reveals 2 distinct clusters. The Hatata is actually composed of 2 treatises, one by Zara Yacob and another by his disciple, Walda Haywat. The mathematical divergence in their sentence lengths and vocabularies proves they were written by 2 different minds. This data is then contrasted with Giusto da Urbino's personal journals. While the Hatata exhibits a masterful use of traditional Ethiopian Kene poetry, Giusto's original writings in the same language are filled with basic grammatical errors. It is a significant linguistic gap. The data suggests it is impossible for a missionary with a limited grasp of the language to have invented 2 distinct, masterful voices in less than 3 years. Further proof lies in the physical nature of the manuscripts. High-resolution scans have allowed for a granular analysis of the parchment and the ink. This close-up reveals a series of traditional Ethiopian proofreading marks, known as ankora. These red ink annotations are not the creative edits of an author, but mechanical spelling corrections made by a scholar cross-referencing against an older manuscript in the lineage. The presence of these marks establishes a chain of transmission that predates Giusto da Urbino's arrival. He was not the author, he was a copyist. The investigation now shifts from the who to the why, the reason this history was erased. The motive is found in recently uncovered archival documents from the 1850s, detailing a coordinated effort by the Catholic Church to suppress the text. In 1857, ecclesiastical authorities in Rome reviewed the Haluta and grew alarmed by its radical rationalism. They labeled the work a true Lucretius of Ethiopian literature, a comparison to the ancient Roman poet whose work denied divine intervention. The Propaganda Fide initiated a campaign from London to Khartoum to seize Giusto's papers and bury the philosophy. They didn't just want the text gone, they wanted to distance the missionary from what they considered poisonous deism. The forgery label was an institutional defense. By branding the work a fabrication, the Church could neutralize a perceived threat to Orthodox doctrine without having to engage with its arguments. By the 1920s, the Church's suppression efforts provided the foundation for colonial historians like Carlo Conti Rossini to weaponize the forgery theory. Conti Rossini used the narrative to push a specific ideological claim that the Ethiopian psychology was incapable of producing independent, rational thought. He utilized the forgery myth to strip a nation of its intellectual agency. This erasure had a physical cost. Conti Rossini published his final dismissal of the Hatata just weeks before the 1935 fascist invasion of Ethiopia, providing a pseudo-intellectual justification for the conquest of a people he labeled incapable of progress. The history of the Hatata reminds us that the consensus of the past is often shaped by the power of the institutions that record it. Despite centuries of suppression and colonial myth-making, the truth of the Hatata was preserved in the very ink scholars tried to dismiss. The text's survival was secured by its own internal logic. It took the application of modern forensics to confirm what the philosophy had already demonstrated. By applying Zara Yacob's method of radical inquiry, Labuna, scholars have finally cleared the historical fog, restoring a masterpiece to its rightful place in history.